My name is Esther Wachiko, and these are the top stories. Federal government makes fresh announcement on WAEC NECO age limit. Federal government increases feeding allowance of inmates by 50%. Edwin Clark calls for Wike's arrest, writes Police Inspector General. Labour Party crisis deepens as Abura rejects Governor Oti, Peter Obi's interim leadership committee. Huriwa calls for sack of presidential aide Bayo Onanuga. And Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer asked for the immediate release of Nnamdi Kanu. Details now. The federal government has announced that exceptionally gifted children under the age of 18 may be permitted to take the West African School Certificate Examinations and the National Examination Council Examination (NECO). This announcement comes amid controversies surrounding the earlier age limit declared for school candidates to enroll in WAEC, NECO and Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board in the country. The Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, during a visit to the Federal Government Academy in Suleja on Thursday, disclosed that a criteria will be developed to guide what will call for the gifted children. Maman made this announcement while attending to questions on the government's plans for gifted children, given the government's new education policy that sets age limits for candidates writing WAEC and NECO examinations. Following a tour of the National School for the Gifted, Professor Maman, accompanied by Minister of State for Education, Dr. Tanko Sununu, addressed the media to announce a 2-week extension of the resumption date for students at the Federal Government Academy Suleja. He clarified that ongoing renovations at the institution necessitated this decision. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Correctional Center today confirmed that the federal government has raised the feeding allowance for inmates by 50%. The increase becomes effective from August 2024. The spokesperson of the NCS, Abubakar Umar, confirmed the development in an interview with the Punch, adding that the approval is part of efforts to address rising food costs and improve inmate welfare. He added that the increase is just the first phase and other adjustments are expected or are targeted at enhancing the living conditions of inmates. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Correctional Center also disclosed that there are at least 3,590 inmates currently on death row within the country's custodial facilities. During an interview with journalists recently in Abuja, the NCOS Public Relations Officer, Assistant Controller of Corrections, Abubakar Umar, disclosed that the overall inmate population in Nigeria's correctional centers stands at 84,741, which includes 82,821 males and 1,920 females as of September 3, 2024. The NCOS representative reported that the number of awaiting trial inmates totals 57,750, which comprises 56,303 males and 1,447 females. Umar stated that many individuals in custody are awaiting trial persons, which presents a considerable challenge for the service due to their substantial numbers. Nevertheless, he assured that the service is implementing measures to tackle this issue and facilitate timely processing for the awaiting trial persons. Now, a former Federal Commissioner for Information and South-South, Edwin Clark, has formally addressed a letter to the Inspector General of Police, Aide, urging the immediate arrest and prosecution of Nyesom Wike, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. During a press briefing held at his residence in Asokoro today, the Ijaw leader expressed his concerns regarding Wike's recent remarks, in which he threatened to incite violence against the governors of the People's Democratic Party. You recall that Wike made these statements while addressing attendees at the PDP Secretariat in Port Harcourt, the capital of Rivers State, during the party's state congress on Saturday, cautioning PDP governors to refrain from interfering in the party's matters in Rivers. Reacting during the briefing today, Clark remarked that the statements made by the former governor of Rivers State represented a blatant disrespect towards President Bola Tinubu, who appointed him. The elder statesman noted that Omoyele Sowore, the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, along with #EndBadGovernance protesters, have been detained for similar offences. He emphasized that the Inspector General of Police should take equivalent action against the FCT minister and compel him to retract his statements. Now, the ongoing crisis within the Labour Party took a new turn as National Chairman Julius Abure voiced his opposition to the creation of an interim committee. Despite recent efforts to reconcile party divisions, tensions got heightened when Abure labeled the 29-member interim committee led by Senator Esther Nnamdi Usman as illegal. The committee, formed during a stakeholders meeting convened by Abia State Governor Alex Oti and the party's national leader Peter Obi, was meant to oversee party operations temporarily. Governor Oti, who is currently the only Labour Party governor in the country, emphasized the need for the party to avert an internal collapse, which he warned could hinder its future electoral prospects. A former Minister of State for Finance, Nnamdi Usman, took on the task of leading the committee and promised to steer the party through a rescue mission. However, Abure and the National Working Committee, which he heads, immediately declared the move unconstitutional. Now, according to Abure, though he was invited to the stakeholders meeting, he chose not to attend. He later asserted that the meeting and its resulting actions were legally unfounded, describing the committee's formation as an overreach. The interim committee includes representatives from the Nigeria Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, as well as senators, members of the House of Representatives, and former governorship candidates from across Nigeria's geopolitical zones. In the same vein, the Human Rights Association of Nigeria has called on President Bola Tinubu to relieve his special assistant to strategic communications, Bayo, Onanuga, of his duties. Huriwa described Onanuga as an Igbo hater. The group claimed that the presidential aide has been vocal in his disdain for Igbos, especially during the 2023 elections, when he was reported to have made inflammatory statements about the Igbos' involvement in Lagos politics. Speaking via a statement signed by the national coordinator, Emmanuel Omubiko, the human rights organization charged Tinubu to take decisive steps against Onanuga. Also, Huriwa argued that Tinubu's continued retention of Onanuga in his government sends the wrong message to Nigerians, particularly the Igbo community, who may feel that the president is tacitly endorsing anti-Igbo rhetoric. The group, however, clarified that it does not believe Tinubu harbors any anti-Igbo sentiments, given his familial ties to the Igbo community. You're currently listening to the World News at 6 on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. We'll take a very short break. When we return, we head into the news analysis segment. This time around, we'll be speaking with Mr. Elvis Elimehele. Mr. Elvis Elimehele is a political, national, and social affairs commentator. He'll be responding to some questions posed at him. Do kindly stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us right here on VOP 90.3 FM. This is our news analysis segment. I'm being joined via the telephone with Mr. Elvis Elimehele. Mr. Elvis, good evening and thank you for joining us on the World News at 6.
Good evening, Esther. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much, Mr. Elvis. Let's look at the situation where Huriwa is calling for the immediate resignation of the presidential media aide to the president and the person of Bayo Onanuga. Huriwa is claiming that he has been vocal in his disdain for Igbos, especially during the 2023 elections, where he was reported to have made inflammatory statements about the Igbos' involvement in Lagos politics. They're also describing him as an Igbo hater, and that most of his utterances has been targeted towards inciting hatred and isolation to the Igbo community or the Igbo tribe. What's your take on this? Do you think the president will consider sacking Bayo Onanuga, whom during his birthday, the president actually praised and said he has done a good job, stood by him in all his works he has done, in the course of his administration commencing? What's your take on that?
Well, Esther, it's a big shame that at this time that we're talking about how to reunite Nigeria and make Nigeria more formidable, especially when we are talking of restructuring, coming up with a better constitution to position Nigeria in a good footing. Somebody who is a very close cabinet member of this administration is, bringing in divide and rule, setting ethnic agenda for the government that he is serving. I know too well that the president will not sack him, but I expect that the president should have cautioned him, especially now that the government is on their shoulder. I don't know why the government you are serving, you are also trying to destabilize that government. Calling for ethnic part of Nigeria to, releasing hate statement on some part of Nigeria as it's not a good thing for the government. But I think the president should call him to order, and every right-thinking Nigerians should condemn it, and civil society organizations should also, throw in their own part of it and also condemn it, because Nigeria really need to talk to Bayo Onanuga, because he is not the only spokesperson of the president, and as a result, we must not bring in crisis into this nation. The crisis we are facing, economic crisis we are facing, is much more enough for us at this moment. I mean, if we have to start running headers to join this one we are already facing, I don't think we can survive it. So because of that, we need to be cautious. And even everybody that is within the executive arm of government that can talk to him should call him to order. It's important. And even the traditional rulers from even the southwestern states should also call him to order. We have Nigeria, we have been living harmoniously together for a long time. It is not now that we need to be calling on one ethnic group should now become a go to the other.
All right, Mr. Elvis, let's look at Nnamdi Kanu's legal representative, his lead counsel, and that's Aloy Ejimako of Nnamdi Kanu. Ejimako warned that the situation in Nigeria would worsen as long as Tinubu continues to sanction Nnamdi Kanu's alleged illegal detention. Now, here is what he posted on X, that is his formerly known as Twitter. He wrote that the president should be watchful of what happens to his regime while Kanu remains detained. He wrote, "Dear President Tinubu, it can only get worse. For as long as you continue to sanction the unlawful detention of #MNK, Nigeria will continue to plunge into a socio-economic abyss. If in doubt, watch and see what shall become of your regime. Never say you were not warned." And so, the information is this. Are we saying that possibly because of the detaining of Nnamdi Kanu, that the country is currently going through what it's going through? Others have attributed it to the fact that, are we saying that the situation in the southeast, the killings, the kidnappings, and the situation between some residents in the southeast and the Nigerian army is all a combination of Nnamdi Kanu's detention? The fuel price increase, the agitation from the people, the dissenting voices, the seeming repressive mannerism from the administration to those who are dissenting, are all this coming up because of Nnamdi Kanu's continuous detention with what he actually wrote out here?
Esther, really, when you are talking of crime, once there is crime in any part of the country, definitely development will not thrive. You see, what the southeastern governors are actually doing, they are struggling to bring in development. They are struggling to make sure that people from that part of the country have a better life to live. Otherwise, what is going on in the southeast is condemnable. This unknown gunman. You saw what happened on Tuesday in Anambra State. A police station was bombed. A police corporal was killed. Yesterday, I saw another report from Imo. These are not good omen for investors. Anybody that is talking about investment will not be too free to go to that part of the country to say, I want to go and put up investment. And you know what that means? Once there are no investment, from either from within local investors coming in there or foreign investors coming in, it grants the activities of those parts of the country. And once that activities are granted, unemployment comes in. And once unemployment comes in, unemployment itself also breeds a lot of insecurity. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
When people are idle, they don't have anything to do, they now begin to think otherwise. So what the lawyer said is not far from me.
But the way the lawyer phrased it is the fact that since the leader is still being incarcerated, the economic situation in the country is getting worse, continues to decline, with citizens lamenting over the hardship and hunger in the country. So here is the theory based on what a lot of reaction has come up from this his write-up on X. So is he saying that once the president approves, all right, or possibly seeks for a way of interfering that Nnamdi Kanu be released, then that means all these economic woes will stop? They will no longer hear dissenting voices, fuel price would reduce, or things will go back to a breathable sense? That's what a lot of people are asking.
No, the reason of Nnamdi Kanu is not going to release. It's not going to reduce the fuel.
No, but that's what he's saying. He's literally saying that so long as Nnamdi Kanu is still being incarcerated, then Nigeria's economy will go down the drain. So in other words, if this economy will no longer go down the drain, then he should be released. So there'll be an economic upturn. So it's almost like maybe because he's being continuously incarcerated, then Nigeria is going through what it's going through. Maybe there is a spiritual connotation to it.
I think what he's just trying to, portray is, to give a better livable condition to the people in the southeast. It's not as if it's going to affect bringing, the price pump price and all that. But if it's released today, there will be a new breath, a new air, will pervade that part of the country, and people will actually, when people are happy, people do things, beyond what you and I can imagine. You understand? And he has even said, the Kanu has even said it too, that as soon as if he is released, all this insecurity we have over there will be a thing of the past. But I am also looking at the president should have also, by this time, should have also look at a way to come in and release him on a political ground, so that let us all even give it a benefit of that, if he will actually be able to help the country to solve the insecurity in that state, so that the economy can flow so well. We are talking about the whole of Southeast. You know what I mean? Five states we are talking about. Yes. And even some of the governors have actually said, okay, release him, for us. And we are going to make sure that we are going to, as soon as he's released, we will take control of whatever condition is granted given. And that's enough for a sitting governor elected by the people, the will of the people, popularity of the people, generality of the people elect the governor, and the governor is standing as a surety for just one person whom they consider that they are sworn to be released. I think the president should have looked into that on political ground, so that we can begin to see a new breath of air in that part of the country. And that will also spill over to other parts. People can go in there and do business. People can go in there and even trade freely as it used to be. That will also stabilize the economy to some extent.
Mr. Elvis, you recall the fate of the Miyetti Haure leader that was cleared of all terrorism-related charges, and also Omoyele Sowore being released. Now, the Miyetti Haure leader, actually, a couple of persons said the evidence against him were so overwhelming that ideally he ought not to have been cleared of those charges. But here is the situation. Nnamdi Kanu is to appear in court this month, towards the ending of this month, I think September 25 or September 27. And the idea is for a bill to be considered or for a political resolution to have been met. Now, others think that there will be some considerations, maybe some terms and conditions that will be signed by him and the federal government. Now, we don't know if that talk is already ongoing. But with Aloy Ejimakor coming out to make this statement, does it tell us that talks have not begun?
No, the talk can continue, and I also see
the talk ought to have commenced, because the next appearance is where a decision supposedly needs to be made. A decision in terms of either granting him bail or him being released from the DSS custody to Kuje prison, or possibly a political resolution where, he'll be free. But the thing now is for Aloy to come out and expressly say what he's saying now. Are we saying they have not commenced talks? Because part of the condition would be, okay, in order to facilitate this process, we don't want you to bring up any negative statements towards us or any negative press statement towards us, things would have been on the low. Aloy may not be saying anything from now up until the next appearance. So does it seem like the conversation or the talk is not going well for Aloy to have written what he wrote on his X handle earlier today?
As lawyers have a way of shaking the legs of the table. I think that's just what they want to do. I know too well nobody should be looking at court resolution, as far as Nnamdi Kanu's matter is concerned. This matter has gone to Supreme Court, and this man has, he has been thrown up and down, releasing today, not releasing, where, different charges are coming up. The only solution to his matter is the president to make a pronouncement on political ground. He just made mention of some people that were released. Look at Dasuki. Dasuki was released on political ground during Buhari's regime.
Yes.
Nobody has heard of his matter come up again in any law court. You just made mention of Showore too. We have seen it before. We have seen it in Nigeria, before now. So his name is not an exemption. I think even as the lawyer is talking, let all the stakeholders, the eastern stakeholders too, also join the lawyer to talk, so that the president should know that this is a serious matter that is concerning a geopolitical zone in this nation. And he also find a way to ameliorate the situation. Let this man be released. Then from there on, another breath will come in, fresh air will come in. They will now begin to look at what is the next way forward. He has stayed there over for this number of years, and look at things are getting worse every day in the security-wise in Southeast, and it's bringing down the economic development and even the physical development of that part of the country. So I know too well that President Tinubu will look into it, but the stakeholders, the intern stakeholders should also keep saying, should assist, in collaborating with the lawyers and who is who to speak to the government. It's important. I know that the late Onanuga, the leader of the Chief Iwanyahu was also in this matter before he died.
Yes.
But Governor Soludo has been a front runner in this matter.
All Southeastern governors actually wrote in respect to his release.
Yes. So I think the president should look at for peace to reign. He was the owner of this country as far as this his 4 years tenure is concerned.
All right.
Try and create a peaceful atmosphere for his government to have a state.
All right. Mr. Elvis, the former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar, and who was also the former 2023 presidential towns, the Northwest and North Central regions, the government seems to be adamant or seems detached and engrossed in inconsequential affairs. Now, insecurity has continued to prevail. We saw on social media the other day where Turji Bello kept on shooting at the air with his colleagues on the armored vehicle that got stuck there, and they were blatant about it. We also saw on social media where some of the Nigerian armies said that Turji Bello should come out from his hiding and face them, since the authorities from above has not asked them. Now, that was quite indicting. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. That was very indicting. They made a statement in reaction to Turji Bello, claiming on social media that, possibly they have the Nigerian army on the balls. The Nigerian army officials who were on the field said if Turji Bello has the spine, he should come out from his hiding and face them, all because they haven't gotten any authoritative stance to go after them. So in that remark, it said quite a lot. It set social media agog. So if the presidency seems to be this adamant in getting those who are galvanizing the End Bad Governance protests, dissenting voices on the kind of living condition we're living now, why is that energy not being directed to capturing and possibly decimating Boko Haram in the region, in those areas where they are basically settling, where it's a hotbed at the moment?
Yes, and that's the most shameful part of the whole security situation of this country. My heart bleeds that the innocent Nigerians that came out, to protest against bad governance and hunger are clamped down in detention, while the insurgents and the bandits are, having feed day in their respective enclaves in the southeast, in the northeast and the northwest. It's so shameful. What Atiku Abubakar said is not far from the truth. Honestly, I must tell you, Esther, when I read that report of this Yobe killing,
yes.
It was so grieving. These people were just coming from the farm. After all the day's labor, coming back home, they were attacked, killed, and their house is burned down. Apart from even that, you saw the one that happened again in Bokos in Plateau State yesterday again.
Yes.
Another one happened there. I mean, the government should not even put too many irons on fire. Let the government face the insurgents and eradicate the insurgents and leave Nigerians to protest against bad governance and hunger. These Nigerians that are protesting don't have arms. They are only venting their anger as a result because they are hungry. And they said, a hungry man is an angry man. This one that the government is cramming them into detention while the soldiers and the bandits are having field day. It's a very shameful act. I would have suggested that the military should not begin to spread their arms too much. They have so much in their kitchen. What we are fighting in Nigeria now for the past 10 years, or even since 2009, that we started fighting this insurgent, and it's increasing every day. It's something that the government should sit down with the military authority, armed forces, especially as the president and commander-in-chief of armed forces, and be able to sort out where is this problem actually coming from. Esther, I want to tell you, I keep telling you that the insurgency we are fighting is no longer, it's beyond what you and I can.
It's beyond, Mr. Elvis.
Yes,
it's something else.
It has become like a trade.
They're so brazen about it. They're so brazen about it, and the government seems to act like they don't understand what they're doing. Because you need to see the rate at which covert measures have been taken on those who galvanize the End Bad Governance protests and never knew that our secret agencies could be this swift and active. Why are they not being swift and active in curbing insecurity? It made the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, whom we thought his administration was bedraggled with insecurity, to make a comment on it. In fact, he actually said that the communities in Yobe State that were ravaged and attacked by these terrorist groups shows that a lot of country. And this was a message that he sent via a condolence visit issued by his spokesperson, Garba Shehu. He decried the recent terrorist attack on Yobe that led to the loss of several lives. Now, you recall during his administration, we had lots of this. In Kaduna, in Borno, in Zamfara, in Maiduguri, insecurity was rife. Now, if the former president can come out to talk, what does that tell you is going on?
It shows total failure. We just finished the Shiroro attack that killed so many farmers were killed last week. Then the next one this week again is the Yobe. Then we have the Plateau yesterday. Esther, to think of it, these people are also using this social media. They use social media. They post
very well.
They post video. Nigeria intelligence, security intelligence are tracing innocent protesters. They cannot use this same technology they are using now to clamp down on innocent protesters, to clamp down on these same bandits that are using the social media everywhere to post videos of their nefarious activities on Nigerians. That shows that there is something behind this insurgency that is due, and I can actually see with our naked eyes. But I know too well that everybody in the north, those who is who in the northern part of Nigeria, know the genesis of this thing, and they know too well that what is going on. If they want to curb it, and if the government is serious in curbing it, they know what to do. Because if they tell us that they have trackers to track innocent protesters, why don't you use the same tracker to track these men who have become so worrisome to Nigeria over the years? They do it and go away with it. The 2-3 billion that everybody is looking for in Zamfara State, is it not within Nigeria? Why is it that we have not been able to fish out his enclaves within Zamfara and smoke him out and his boys? But unfortunately, you see the way they were able to smoke out the NSC building, whatever they said they found there, and all even other persons that they are picking around.
Mr. Elvis, because of time, because I want us to talk about a couple of things. Like I said, the situation about insecurity. Nigerians believe that if the federal government was adamant and puts its feet down, insecurity will be curbed. The spate of kidnapping, the spate of killings in the north, the brazen killings and attack in the north will stop. A lot of Nigerians feel, if you go on X, they feel like there is a trade going on here. And so long as insecurity prevails, then of course they will continue to cash out on it. A lot of Nigerians have died due to this. Businesses have suffered. Companies have closed up. Most communities in those regions have closed up. Investors cannot even go to those regions because of insecurity. There is acute poverty in those areas, and more people keep dying. And it almost feels like our security agencies cannot do or say anything about it. But then they're very, very adamant and sustainable in having to track down dissenting voices based on the stifling economic situation in the country. And that's the reason why Atiku Abubakar is calling for a complete rehabilitation or change of the president's cabinet. Huriwa is calling for the sack of his presidential aide, who have been inciting derogatory and polarizing comments, all right, about tribes and whatnot on social media. Now, because of the situation ongoing, we know the increment in fuel price. The Vice President has eventually called on the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lokpobiri, the Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, and the National Security Advisor over the recent increase. We know this order is coming from the presidency, and they're asking that the price, the petrol should be sustainable. There should be supply. But they're not saying anything about this price increment. So the idea is make the product available, but we don't know if the price will reduce. What's your take on this?
Yes, sir, the price has come to stay. I'm not seeing a reduction in price. You know, we have subsidy secretly ever since, but they kept on coming to deny it. But now it has gotten to a stage that it is so overwhelming on them that they can no longer deny it. This price has come to stay, but what is going to happen is civil society organization and labor and all that may come up and protest, but I'm not seeing something that is going to come out so much from it. Now, this government has a way of, sending out propaganda to pull down dissenting voices that want to come, attack them. That's what you are going to see.
Mr. Elvis, how much was a liter of petrol before the president took over on May 29, 2023?
It was less than 200. We were buying 190, 195, 185 a liter of petrol.
And now it is selling, the new pump price is going for 897. Now the federal government told us, the SCCPC told us that the price of food will reduce in a very short while. Now, Mr. Elvis, with this increment and 50% hike, see that happening because these food vendors definitely have to make their money. Transportation is included to carry these goods from one place to another, so they will need to make profit. So if that is the case, how do we see any resultant effects in the reduction of food prices?
There is not going to be anything like reduction of food prices, Esther. You know, when FCCPC made that statement, I condemned it. One, the federal government has no grain reserve in any of the silos in this nation. Then why will they sit down and be telling the traders to reduce the food prices when they know that the trader is what they buy is fair? And now, after making that statement, that careless statement from the DG last 2 weeks, now the fuel price has been increased. Is it not even going to be worse now? So I want Nigeria to call on the DG of FCCPC to apologize to Nigeria because this is trying to take this matter from the root up and not take on the foundation. First of all, the government should create atmosphere for people to go to farm and farm adequately. And again, federal government should make farm produce available and seedlings and implement available for farmers to use before you can now begin to tell somebody to reduce price. Food price. With this current increment in fuel price that we saw this week, Esther, you will know what it is. Get to the market by weekend, you will know what we will be hearing.
Barrister Darlington, Lokpobiri, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, is assuring Nigerians that measures are being put in place to ensure the scarcity and queues at filling stations disappear by the end of the week. That is what his reaction is to the call by the the Vice President. He's equally noting that while prices may vary in different regions, the government's goal is to ensure fuel becomes more accessible, which will ultimately help stabilize prices. Lokpobiri, however, clarified that the fuel price is determined by market forces and not the federal government, as the sector remains deregulated. Now, Barrister Darlington, Mr. Elvis, listen to this. Dangote recently told us, all right, that if at all he begins operations, NNPC will be the sole buyer. And now they're the sole importer, they're the sole suppliers. So how does that state that the sector is deregulated? And when he was asked who would determine the price, he said the Federal Executive Council would determine the price that would be benchmarked for the sale of his products. So how is that being a deregulated sector?
I don't know the type of deregulation that is in NNPC, Esther. I must tell you the truth. We can see telecommunication sector as deregulated as it is. We saw when they rolled out, when some were saying per seconds billing was not going to be possible, but when Glo came with per seconds billing, and it brought the other stakeholders, computation company to his knee. They have to abide by it, by Glo's price charges. Unfortunately, now
you're talking of the telecommunications sector, right? It being deregulated.
Yes,
but is deregulation not meant to make prices accessible, affordable?
That is when it is fully deregulated. That's when the market price forces are able to control the price. Not this one that Dangote is telling us that he's waiting for price that is going to come from the Federal Executive Council before we can fix price. If Dangote if the oil is fully deregulated, Dangote is supposed to fix its own price. Then every other oil companies that have the same that are into retail in the downstream sector will fix their own price. It's not that suit Nigeria better. You go there and buy. Unfortunately, we are still seeing a monopolistic matter in this tendencies in this so-called deregulated downstream sector. So I don't know the type of deregulation that we have in the oil sector.
Mr. Elvis, at the moment, what the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources is actually telling us in conclusion, based on what the conversation he's having with the Vice President, is that market forces will naturally bring prices to a more stable level. But literally, we should bear with this increment. So the increment is here to stay.
The increment is going to stay, and there is nothing like market forces will bring down the price in this oil sector, especially the downstream sector of the oil industry, because we have not seen any deregulation that are taking place here. What is happening there is that the government is still holding on to it. The government is still fixing price. The government has not told us how much they are even paying our subsidy and where they are getting the money to pay this subsidy, at the back door. Because we have been told that it's not appropriated in the budget. Anything that is not appropriated in the budget and the government is paying, which means the government is not following the constitution, and that's an impeachable offense. They should come and tell Nigerians where they have the money that they are using to pay the subsidy that they told us that is gone in May 29 last year. So there is nothing like deregulation in the oil sector. Look at what is going on. Even a private refinery is telling you that he's waiting for government to fix price. It has to tell you that the government have not removed their hand in it. So we don't know what is going on. We don't. The product may be available maybe by next week or next 2 weeks, but the price will never come down because the market is not in charge of the prices of this petroleum product in Nigeria.
Mr. Elvis Ali Behele, thank you so much for taking your time in sharing your perspective and giving us your own insight into the questions that we pose at you. I sincerely do appreciate your input.
Thank you, Esther. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. To wrap up here again are the top stories. Federal government makes fresh announcement on WAEC NECO age limits. Federal government increases feeding allowance of inmates by 50%. Edwin Clark calls for Wike's arrest, writes police IG. Labour Party crisis deepens as Abure rejects Governor Oti Peter Obi's interim leadership committee. And Huriwa calls for sack of presidential aide Bayo Onanuga. That's a wrap on the world news at 6. My name is Esther Wachuku. Good evening and thank you for listening.